Good morning, everybody. Good to be back. Week and a half, almost 2 weeks in Las Vegas. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I just get all the energy. Just wears me out sometimes. So, let's start with a quote from Ernest Holmes that ties to absolutely everything we're going to be talking about today. Ernest Holmes writes in The Science of Mind to suppose that the creative intelligence of the world would create us in bondage and leave us bound would be to dishonor that creative power which we call God or any other name. On the other hand, to suppose that God could make man as an individual without leaving him to discover himself would be to suppose an impossibility. This month we're talking about when we were using the book Illusions by Richard Bach, and it's a great story about a man really looking to discover his own creative agency, if you will, and to uncover and to reveal for himself his relationship to the whole, his relationship to the creative force that we call God or spirit or life or whatever name we want to apply to it, to really look inside himself and find out what is this? What is this thing we do? What is this interaction we have with life? And where does it live? Where is it? Where does that happen? Where does that happen? And to look at life in terms of freedom and look at life in terms of creativity. That's Richard, our main character, one of our main characters. His main concern, it comes up over and over again, is him valuing his freedom more than anything else. His freedom of choice, his freedom to create, his freedom to live the kind of life that he would have, that he would live. And he's out living it. He's flying in his biplane and selling rides and, by all appearances, having just a nice time doing what he does and being completely okay, not needing anything more, not regretting or feeling like he's missing out on something. He senses a larger life, and he meets up with Dawn, and Dawn shows him a larger version of living, a more expanded way of experiencing life. So the question I've been posing myself this week, and I would pose to you is, if you were going to, so I'll just pose it to me, Lee. If you were going to create a life worth living, what would that look like? If you're going to start from scratch, clear the slate, and create a life worth living, a life that speaks to your heart, a life that is really a reflection of who and what you are on the inside, of your highest ideals and ideas of who and what you are. What does that life look like? What's possible? I'm going to let you sit with that one for a while. Because Richard explored that in the book. And if you haven't picked up a copy of the book, go get it. It's worth it. For so many years in the personal growth, spiritual growth arena, we have these quippy little, clever little sayings, right? Dare to dream, think and grow rich, possibility thinking. It is done unto us as we believe. I mean, that's kind of one of the early ones. And we look at them and we say, wow, that's great. I can do that. And we get all excited and we'll go to a retreat for a week. And for about 2 or 3 weeks after, we're all fired up and we buy, I have a couple sets of these, the whole cassette tape set. How many of you have one of those sitting in your closet somewhere? Yeah. And we get all fired up and excited, and it lasts for 2, 3 weeks. And then reality sets in, right? We run up against our own limited ideas of who and what we are. And the Messiah's handbook in here pops up at one point and says, the original sin is to limit the is to limit spirit. The original sin is to limit the is, what they refer to as God or spirit or whatever, life. And remember that the word sin, all that is, it's just an old archery term that means to miss the mark. So let's not fill it with all kinds of charge and stuff. It simply means to make a mistake, to miss the center of the target, to be a little off. Vincent van Gogh had this to say, and I found this interesting. I had never really thought of looking to the Vincent van Gogh. Do not quench your inspiration and your imagination. Do not become a slave, and it should be my fault, typo. Do not become a slave to your model. And that gave me pause. I had to stop and think about the use of the word model in that context. Do not become a slave to what you have thought yourself to be, or what you think, or what we think we're expected to be. Vincent van Gogh, just a wonderful, famous artist. Do not become a slave to your model. He was painting, he was creating. And in that creative process, am I slave to what life is showing me? Am I going to limit my experience or my possibility to what I have been shown up until now? Am I going to walk through my life being limited by what's already been done? If humankind decided it was going to be limited by what had already been done, we'd still be in caves and we wouldn't have a wheel. Right? If that was the case. We are all about innovation. We are all about change. We are all about growth. We are all about possibility thinking. And sometimes I know that I get limited. I have been limited in the past by what has gone before. I was talking about it in another space earlier this morning. 3 years ago or so, I got myself locked into a very comfortable pattern. Too comfortable. Way too comfortable. And I didn't even know it. I'd found myself into this rhythm of life and I was okay with it. And the truth is, I wasn't. There was part of me that was looking for something more. And somebody came into my life and kind of tweaked me a little bit and probably saw what I didn't see and said, hey, you might consider da 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 da. What about da 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 da? What are you going to do about da da da? And it's like all of a sudden he stirred stuff up and I'm like, what? All of a sudden possibilities emerged. All of a sudden I decided to step through what had been and not accept what I had been doing as the normal going forward. And I started looking at life in terms of possibility rather than programming. Alan Watts writes this. He says, but to me, nothing, the negative, the empty, is exceedingly powerful. The nothing, the negative, the empty is exceedingly powerful. There's a creative place in us when we're talking about stepping beyond what has gone before, letting go of the way things have been. How often do I really dare to or even consider looking at my life in terms of a clean slate and letting it all go and saying, if I was going to create it today, what would it look like? What's going to bring me joy? What is that empty? What does the empty look like? And even the negative, what Alan Watts calls the negative, or Thomas Troward would say, that is the plastic, universal, subjective space that we create the imprint of that which we desire to be expressed in our lives. That negative image, that inverse image that says, okay, this is the space I want spirit to fill, and it looks like this. It looks like a life filled with love. It looks like a comfortable place to live. It looks like food on, 3 meals a day. If we want 3, maybe somebody wants 2 or 4. How do you want it to look? How do you want it to feel? And how do you want to feel in that space? Is my life worth living? Does it look like a sense of joy? Does it look like peaceful? Does it feel peaceful? Does it feel happy? Does it feel joyful? Do I have a sense of compassion? Am I surrounded by people that celebrate me because I'm celebrating them? Am I surrounded by individuals that see all of me and have room for all of me? It is a space in which I live that says, you know what? This is a space where there's no apologies necessary, where I can simply be me and take up the space I need to find my livingness, to find my healing, to find my joy. Is that what it looks like? We get to create all of this. We say, well, how do we do that? Well, in the book Illusions, there's a little exercise that Donald puts Richard through, and I'm going to invite you all to take part in that for just a couple minutes. Okay. So I'm going to invite, if you're comfortable, and this will be a more expanded thing for those of you online, but we'll see how this goes. If you're comfortable, just let your eyes close. And I would invite you to imagine in your mind a blue feather. And see all the details. You see where the feathering meets the quill, and see it bright blue or dark blue. And then surrounded in like a golden white light, and see it vibrant and alive. And we are drawing that feather to us into our experience. And just feel that feather coming toward you right now, coming into your world. And when you feel like that's complete for you, hold it in your mind's eye, hold it in your hand. Feel it present in your experience. And then when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Now, I will tell you, you've all got your blue feather, and I'm trusting that those of you out there watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, your blue feather will show up for you. Because here's how this worked. I ordered a whole bag of blue feathers. What day was that? Friday? Friday. And it was delivered yesterday to the house. And we left. And quite honestly, I was not real thrilled with the quality of the feathers that we ordered. But this morning I left them behind, and we got here. I was like, oh man, the feathers, we left the feathers behind. And so I let it go. And then Katie said, well, I can go look at Walmart. And we got these feathers are like so much better. They're like way better than the feathers in the bag at the house. So I'm going to give you all credit for manifesting. These are the feathers actually that I imagined in my mind's eye when I thought about doing this. So together we manifested a much higher quality feather. Thank you. So thank you. Thank you. All this to say that yes, we created this experience together. And so I want you all to take credit for manifesting this blue feather that's in your hand. It may feel a little manufactured and all that, but it's not. We created this experience together. We did. Ernest Holmes writes, or Richard goes on to write this. You are never given a wish without the power to make it come true. Period. You may have to work for it, however. You may have to participate. You may have to show up and engage. You may have to choose to do things a little bit differently. You may have to let go of something in order to create space for that something new. You may have to do some prayer and meditation. You may have to do some journaling. You may have to get out into the world and show up somewhere. You may have to make a phone call. Who knows what you're going to have to do? But it's my life. It's your life. And yes, there's a power greater than we are that is surrounding us, moving through us, lifting us up, showing up as us, for us, that we partner with. Emphasis on that word partner. At the very least, at a mental, spiritual level, there is work for us to do to create the space for that something new to occur. To draw the higher quality feather into your life. See, every time we are given a vision, we are also given the way to make that vision come true. There's a saying that says, along with every vision is the provision for that thing to come into the world. If we're given the vision, we're given the provision to engage in the creative process of bringing that into manifestation. Just like Thomas Trower said, as long as once the end result is secured in mind, the way to bringing that into the world is also secured. Paraphrase. In the book Illusions, he goes on and on and on about, it's a story, it's a book. He goes on and on and on about, yeah, I can manifest this, and yes, we're creating this, and yes, we're manifesting that. And we get all wrapped up in that process, and it's the way of life. It's the way of being that we are deepening to get there. It's understanding that we are partnering with something greater. That there's a quality of imagination that comes into play when what we're doing is engaging in the activity of producing a better life for ourselves, a better life for the people that we're associated with, a better life for our friends and family, for us fundamentally. Richard goes on to say, or the book, in the book, the Messiah's Handbook goes on to say, if you will practice being fictional for a while, you will understand that fictional characters are sometimes more real than people with bodies and heartbeats. Be with that for just a moment, because I know it's like for me. I remember the first time reading it, you're going, "What? What?" Think about where they exist. Where do these fictional characters? And how many times, for myself, actually, in my imaginings of possible futures and the fear-based thinking that sometimes, occasionally, every now and then, arises in my brain, how real do those feel? Especially when I get afraid. I start imagining possible outcomes as a result of making this choice or that choice or this other choice, or something happens in my world, and all of a sudden, worst case scenarios start flying forward. How real do those feel in the moment until we catch ourselves? They feel quite real. To me, they do. And then I catch myself and I'm like, no, we're not going to play this game. We're going to play a different game that says, how good can it be? What's possible if I embrace a more optimistic view of possible outcomes, possible scenarios because of X? If I make this choice, what's the good that comes from it? So I get to entertain the what's good, what's possible, what's the optimistic outlook. Because if not this, then what? If not fear, then love. If not anxiety, then a sense of peace. You see, I get to choose all of that. I get to make those decisions. I get to set new causes in motion. Every time I really embody a belief, I'm setting that new cause in motion that says, this is the loving, joy-filled, prosperous, happy, healthy outcome that I'm going to choose for my life today. This is what I am affirming for me. This is what I am knowing for me. I get to do this. I get to be this. And so do you. Each and every one of us gets to choose differently. Gets to choose to draw into our lives that higher quality blue feather that you have in your hand. And those of you at home, expect that blue feather. Expect that blue feather. So in closing, what is inspiring for you? What does that life worth living look like, feel like? What is the texture of it? What is all of that? What do you get to choose? What decisions are you going to make about the quality of your life, the quality of your living, the quality of your being, the quality of your expression? What am I going to let go of, and what am I going to receive? All of that is possible. So this week in your spiritual practice, in our spiritual practice together, this is the opportunity. What images of what's possible inspire you? In the still and quiet beyond the chatter, what do you see and feel in your mind and heart? So this week in your quiet time, let's empty and then allow a vision of our life worth living to emerge. How does it feel? Might it look like? And then be willing to open yourselves to what is the first step? How do you participate? So, with all of that, now it's your turn. Questions, comments? Anybody? Online? Anybody online? Type it in the chat. Not a one? Oh.
Only because I'm holding it already.
All right, Jim.
I put a red check mark next to what I wrote down with the end result in mind.
Yes.
And I fail to start there. Always.
Oh.
I think, well, maybe I'll get an idea and maybe I'll try a little of this and see how it goes. But I never actually go to the end result.
Oh.
And that's the magic of it, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add the end. So there's the end result. And I always liked, I own this or something better. This is what I can imagine today. And I always like to stay open to maybe there's something better. Right? Maybe there's something greater that I can't even imagine today, but maybe tomorrow. Right? So thank you. Thank you, Jim. Anybody else? We check in the online chat. Nobody? Nothing. There were quite a few. I mean, before I even got up here, there were like 9 people in there already. I was thrilled. 30? What? 13. Yay. All right, friends. Good. Well, let's take it into prayer then. We'll do this. And so this morning, as we gather together in this moment, we recognize that there is only one. One infinite power and presence. We call it God, infinite spirit, life, love, joy, peace, prosperity, all of this. It is all of this. And it is in this atmosphere, this energy, this infinite power and presence that we live and move and have our being. And it expresses itself in, through, and as each and every one of us, each and every one an individualized expression of the infinite, a point of light within the mind of God, a point of love within the heart of spirit. This is what we are, each and every one. And we feel it, we sense it, we know it. We know its presence right here and right now. We know this is true of each and every one of us, not just here in this space, but everybody online. Truly, it is the truth of each and every individual that we see, touch, feel, and experience in our lives. We're so grateful to know this. And so I speak this word of truth for each and every one here, knowing that all is well, that life is good, that the creative agency that we claim and accept and know for each and every one of us is active right here and right now. That love lifts us up to see clearly, that love guides our minds and our hearts to create a life worth living that is expansive and loving and joy-filled. It is filled with health and wholeness and prosperity, knowing that our needs are met and fulfilled to overflowing. That the cycle of receiving and giving and receiving and giving goes on and on and on through each and every one of us. And that we celebrate each other, we support each other, hold space for each other to express the fullness of our being. We're so very, very grateful. And we go forth from this place to bless, heal, and prosper our own lives and the lives of those that we experience and touch every day. In our city, our state, our country, our world, this life worth living is expressed in its fullness through every point. And so in gratitude we go forth truly into this day, knowing all is well and that life is good as every one of us, and so we let it be. And so it is.